we underestimate ourselves as women. If you're trying to set goals or build plans or try and achieve things when you're underestimating yourself, then you're never gonna meet your potential. So it's about starting to up-level how you see yourself. See yourself for who you really are instead of looking at your flaws and missing all the good bits about yourself.
Today, we're talking about confidence. I hear this all the time in coaching conversations, especially with women in leadership. You need more confidence. You need more executive presence. You need to be more strategic. Okay, great. But what does that actually mean? And why does that feedback so often come without any real instruction, context, or support? My guest today is Kirsteen Williamson-Guinn, founder of Elevate Women. Kirsteen spent more than 3 decades in banking, including senior leadership in a high-pressure, male-dominated industry. She understands the politics, the pressure, the performance expectations, and the way women are often asked to navigate impossible double standards at work. This conversation is really about what happens when you stop just performing and start leading your career with more strategy, self-advocacy, and intention. We talk about imposter syndrome, executive presence, non-promotable tasks, and strategic relationships, and what it actually takes for women to advance in leadership and future-proof their careers in a world that is changing very quickly. Let's get unscripted. Kirsteen, welcome to Work Unscripted.
Thank you for having me, Marlo. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I am excited to have you. I am super excited because there's so much to share today, but I'm going to take you backward before we go forward. So you spent about 15 years as a banking director in what sounds like a really high pressure, male dominated world. And a lot of my clients work in those still today. So what was your career like from the inside?
It was that. Quite often, it did feel like a lot of pressure. And I think sometimes we get used to the pressure and we don't even realize that we are under pressure and even in a stressed state a lot of the time. For the most part, I absolutely loved my job and my career. And I spent 32 years in banking. So, most of my adult life. So I had a nice career trajectory. It was very familiar. And I was a bit of an expert. I knew what I was doing. I was great at building teams and transforming teams. But as you know, and your clients will tell you, the more senior you get, the more political it gets. The more I felt like I was being bent out of shape, and the less that the powers above actually seemed to care about what was going on. And that was a massive frustration for me. It certainly was very male dominated. And in my last few years in that career, I went into an even more male dominated part of the business, which I really felt when I went in there. And it was actually pretty good for me because I learned how to, I had to learn new skills. I had to build more strategic relationships and have more informal offline conversations. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had influence. If you rely on the meetings to get things done, especially in a male-dominated world, you are going to struggle. And I did, which is why I then really focused on who are the people I need in my circle. How do I connect with those people and build, strong strategic relationships that I can access what I need to?
That's a great piece of feedback. I don't think people realize that outside of meetings, the relationship is not in the meeting. I don't think they realize that.
I don't know how many conference calls I sat on, especially in a virtual world. I think it's even harder where, I'm on a call for 90 minutes and I actually went to the point where I just gave up trying to get a word in because there wasn't really that much point. So I would just take it offline. Some would say that I was creating more work for myself, but I would say that's how I made things happen. That's how I got the results I needed. And so I was good with that.
So that's how you built the trust with people back then.
Yes.
Yeah. You said something earlier. You said you were bent out of shape. I'm really curious about that. What does that mean? Because I think a lot of people feel frustrations in the workplace and they just don't identify what that actually means. They just know, well, this is how it is. This is how I am. I am stressed.
Yeah, that this is how it is doesn't do well with me. And I'm a very honest and direct person. So when I was saying to you about that, the more senior you get, the less that needs to be heard in certain rooms. And so I felt bent out of shape because I felt like I was apologizing to my team so often, and I was losing integrity with that, because I'd be thinking, well, why am I still apologizing for this? This should just be sorted. And that's what I mean by being bent out of shape. We can't just continue to ask for more and not make it easy for people to do their jobs, because that's how we end up with a broken business and a broken person. And I think I became so disconnected from my whole self. That's what I mean. And there were other factors at play. As in things that were going on in my personal life, which then led me to leave. But definitely the environment, the politics, the lack of genuine care in some cases, and the short-termism of protecting positions rather than, taking a good look at what needs to change.
You see that often, that people are so busy protecting their job that they are not actually working for the business anymore. They're working in protection of their job, of their team, of how many people they have, of the control, of the power. For you specifically, though, was there something specific that happened, like a conversation, a setback, an observation, something that you said, all right, I'm at the top of my game here and something's not right?
My decision to leave came because I started to recognize what was going on with me, and also because I was watching both my parents disappear in very different ways. My dad was terminally ill, my mum had dementia, and I was watching them both. It was hot, and I felt totally out of control. And, I'm a control freak. I'm trying not to be these days, but back then I was definitely a control freak and I couldn't do anything about this. And so you start to take stock about what life really is, and life isn't work. It shouldn't be. And I decided that I needed to find my way out and leave. And that's what I did.
And so you took this leap and you founded a organization called Elevate Women. Big leap to go out on your own, right? After having a paycheck for, you said, almost 30 years. That's a really long leap.
Yeah, it was a big leap. But I never doubted it was the right thing to do. And I left, my official exit was November 2019. And I started lining myself up with conversations with other banks to talk about female talent retention. I had meetings booked. February 2020, everything came out of the diary because of COVID. And I had to really pivot, that word that was overused massively during COVID. I did it because I had to, because suddenly I had zero income. First time in my life, well, since I was 14, no income. And what am I doing? It was quite scary.
And when you go out on your own, that happened to me. I went out on my own a number of years ago, and my confidence was shaken at the beginning. I had been coaching for well over a decade at that point. I knew what I was doing, But all of a sudden, when I'm out on my own and I have to quote rainmake, right, have clients, and I'm not really good at that. I don't go out and solicit clients. I usually am referred. But I definitely had a confidence crisis, I would say, for a brief moment, just a brief moment. And then, of course, you get your first client and you keep moving. And that, did you have a confidence crisis at all? Like, especially when COVID hit?
Absolutely. I never doubted my decision. But especially as an entrepreneur, the compare and despair is real. You see all these people who are way ahead of you and you're just starting out. And you've also got this, and whether I like it or not, I had an ego as a corporate professional. I had all of the things that go with that position. And then suddenly it's just me. And, who am I? Who am I to be talking to these people? Whereas previously I had a position, which meant people wanted to talk to me. So yeah, there was definitely many moments of who am I? I trust that I'll figure it out. I trust that I'll make it work. But in this moment, who am I to be doing this? It's weird.
And what does Elevate Women do now?
Okay, so when I founded my business, it was called Return to Work. And the reason I set it up as Return to Work was because that's one of the most stressful times in people's careers, whether you're going back after having a family or caring for a family or caring for yourself because you've been long-term sick. And so I wanted to help people when they were most stressed because that's what I'd found my way through. But what happened was I ended up helping people leave. So, which was
the complete opposite. I love that.
A bit of a contradiction. And especially if companies were paying, I'm helping people find themselves again, build that confidence. And then they're turning around and saying, well, actually, I don't like this organization anymore. I want something bigger and better because they've got that core confidence. So that's when I rebranded to Elevate Women. And so now I'm all about helping women transform their relationship with themselves so they could speak up, step up, stand out, do whatever it is that they want to do. If they want to leave, they can leave like I did. They want to get a bigger role, get a bigger role. If they want to feel good in themselves instead of overthinking, second guessing, doubting, that's what we do.
It's amazing because I find the same, by the way, my female clients, many times they don't want to stick around after they regain that sense of confidence of what they want, what they deserve, what they're owed, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. You have a book out. It's called Unshakable Confidence. I'm sure that came from all of this. But we hear the word confidence a lot. Like it's just a very common word. Like and I hear that a lot about my women leaders when I talk to their bosses to onboard, right? As their coach, I hear, well, they need more confidence. Mm-hmm. And I always dig into that because I'm always like, well, what does that mean? Because usually that means that they're not showing up the way the leader expects them to show up, but they are confident. I've never found a woman who's not actually confident. It's just how they show up. So what does it mean for you when you're talking about that in the context of senior leadership? And what does it not mean?
Confidence doesn't mean that you're going to get promoted, you're going to progress in your career. Confidence is it's not a fixed trait. It's something that will increase and decrease dependent on what you're doing. What I created was a system, and I badge it as confidence because that's the thing people think they need. What they actually need is to start to trust themselves, to start to support themselves as they take bigger steps, to actually spend some time thinking about what they really want instead of thinking about everybody else and everything else. And so that's my system. But when it comes to career and progression, it's about strategy. It's about positioning. It's about action. It's never just confidence. But confidence is the word that people use. And especially lazy leaders, I'm afraid to say.
Yes.
Because
I agree.
It's like saying, well, someone doesn't have gravitas. And, I had that feedback. Well, tell me specifically. Well, I can't. Well, thanks for nothing.
It's the same as executive presence. It's the same thing, right? Like I have a podcast, if people haven't listened to that one that just dropped called Executive Presence. What is it? What is it really? Because again, it means something different to every single leader.
Absolutely.
It's not like, oh, you need more executive presence. That's going to be different. Confidence is the same thing, how it shows up.
Exactly. And then with women in particular, you've got these double binds where you don't want to be too confident because people don't like you. So you have to dial up charisma. If you're going to be confident and competent, you have to be warm and likable. And all these things are at play, which is why strategy is so important and understanding the system that you operate in.
Exactly. I think it's a little bit different for women that men don't understand. I tell my husband this all the time. He's like, really? I'm like, oh yeah, you have to come with me to buy the car. I could buy the car. I could do it, but they'll mess with me. Versus if you're sitting there, they won't mess with you. And that's exactly what it is. Right. And so it's the same thing in an office, which I find, and this is not a ding on men. There are many great male leaders out there who have been great mentors of mine. Right. I'm sure you've had the same, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not every male leader out there.
No. Definitely not. There's some great ones. It's just unfortunate that some don't even realize that that's what they're doing.
Exactly. And I think that creates imposter syndrome at times where women feel like, okay, I got this role because I know what I'm doing, but now all of a sudden I don't feel like I deserve this role. And especially at the higher levels. Do you find that as well?
I certainly do. I personally hate the word syndrome. I refer to imposter shenanigans because I think it's just how my brain works. I think it is shenanigans. I think feeling like an imposter, the more senior you get, the bigger it can feel because there's more at stake. There's more people watching. If you fall, you're going to land hard. And so these feelings become stronger at that level. The reason they're shenanigans is because the most successful people feel like imposters. And I remember reading an article a long time ago when I first got one of my big leadership roles. And it said, a headline was 95% of CEOs struggle with imposter syndrome.
Absolutely.
And bearing in mind that the majority of CEOs still, sadly, and especially back then, were men.
Yep.
And lots of women think it's a women thing. It's not. It's a human trait. You know, I think, and we have to just think, okay, it's going to happen. How do I channel this rather than let it stop me? How do I support myself as I'm having this little wobble? So that I can keep moving forwards.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with the stats, actually, because a lot of my senior leaders that are in the C-suite that are men, same problem. I mean, same issue, same. And honestly, it's just having that voice sometimes. It's having that person to bounce stuff off of. They know what they're doing. I don't need to tell any leader what to do, ever. They are brilliant. They know what to do. But having that person to bounce something off of and just know and feel confident in themselves that they're making the right decision, even especially when it's a really hard decision, like letting go the performer who's a very high performer, but their soft skills are a disaster. That's where I find it's the hardest.
Yes.
You probably see that as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. The sounding board and the trusted neutral sounding board is massive for people. And we all need to talk things through. Coaches have coaches. It's massively important.
Yeah, we drink the juice, as they say. So one of the things I found most fascinating that you talk about, and this is something that has resonated with me very deeply, is that when people shift from being a performer to a strategic leader, and confidence takes a hit right around there. And I'd love you to talk a little bit about that, because I have been a performer my whole life. And when I stopped performing for everyone else, I finally found myself. So, and became the leader I wanted to be. So I'd love for you to describe a little bit what you see out there. Maybe you have an example.
What I see is very often especially very senior women, performing the way they think they're expected to perform. And what that can lead to, and I've had this conversation with so many women, something can happen where you reach a certain level as a woman and you become a man. Your masculine energy just takes over and you feel like you have to perform in the way that a man does. And all of that masculine energy comes forward. When that doesn't happen, and when people start to realize that they can actually be themselves and be that strategic leader in their own right, then, I mean, the best thing to do here is treat it as an experiment rather than think, well, everything's going to have to be exactly as it should be. Everything's going to have to be perfect. And this is one of the challenges in being yourself, because you feel like there are expectations from everybody else. And then there, of course, are your own expectations, which often are ridiculously high. So if you start to be yourself, what's that going to look like? And that's where the strategy comes in, where you start to understand what are the strategic priorities of the company that you can feed into and start to show your impact rather than just working so hard and performing that you actually end up getting stuck where you are. That's what I see an awful lot. That's one of the biggest career traps I see for women, is that they work so hard, they try and take everything on, including how they're expected to perform, that they end up getting stuck there because they do such a great job that it's very difficult to see them as anything other than that position.
Than what they do. So how do you go about transforming a woman's relationship with herself? What does that look like? What do you hold on to? What do you let go of?
The most important thing is to really understand how that person sees themselves now and what is possible for themselves. And that's the bridge that we create, because we underestimate ourselves as women. Studies show that. And we know that men overestimate themselves. This is general. So I don't want to make sweeping statements about men or women, but studies show that generally that's the case. So if you're trying to set goals or build plans or try and achieve things when you're underestimating yourself, then you're never gonna meet your potential. So it's about starting to up-level how you see yourself. See yourself for who you really are, instead of looking at your flaws and missing all the good bits about yourself. And then up-level what's possible for yourself and creating that growth plan that gets you where you need to get to. So up-leveling your beliefs about yourself. Up-leveling your mindset. We don't have to be perfect. Treat things as an experiment. As long as you're going in the right direction, that's great. Building skills and capacities, because often it's not that we're not good enough, it's that we don't have the skills. And, a classic example when you ask me about confidence as an entrepreneur, marketing. Tell me a coach that loves marketing themselves. And
nobody. I have a marketing team. I absolutely do not I don't market myself. I don't do any lead generation. No interest whatsoever.
But it's in the early days, I could have made that mean that I'm not cut out to be an entrepreneur. Because you think, well, I can't do that. Fixed mindset. Who I am is not an entrepreneur. That's not the right thing for me. And it's the same in any context. We have to look at, if something isn't working, it's not about who we are, it's about what we're doing. And maybe we need to build some skills that we don't have or improve some skills that we do have. And that's all part of transforming your relationship with yourself. Because there's studies that show that women and girls are more likely, significantly more likely, to make shame-based meaning in the event of setbacks and failures about themselves, rather than men and boys who will make it mean something about what they did rather than who they are.
I'm raising my hand right now because I've been there. I've been there way too often. Absolutely. And I've spent a lot of time really reframing my brain to when there's a setback or something that doesn't go right. Had a couple things just this week. And I kept saying to myself, all right, there's learning in this. What can I learn from this? There is learning in this. My daughter yesterday came home and said she was crying in front of her class by accident because she got flustered. And I asked her last night when she was calmer, and I just said, what did you learn from that? Like, what is the learning? Like, I'm trying to teach my kids that too, because if you're just curious about what happened,
yes,
right? There's learning in everything.
Yeah. But the trap is we just fall back into, well, it's not for me. I can't do it.
Why? Yeah. I shouldn't have done that. Why did that happen? Right? We fall into that. And it pulls you out so much quicker to think about being curious and learning from it. So in your mind, what does future ready mean in the context of like female leadership today? And, especially with AI and how fast organizations are changing and shifting priorities and strategies. What are your thoughts on that? Like, what do we need to do to be future ready?
So there's the work that we need to do around ourselves and the strategies that we have to position ourselves for opportunities. And then there's what do businesses need? Businesses need great human leaders that bridge the gap with technology, so that take people to confidence with technology. Because you can't do that just with technology. You're talking about curiosity. Soft skills, I think, are becoming, I hate the term soft skills because I think it implies that they're not that important. Soft skills are becoming more and more and more important. That's a good thing for female leaders because that's often our natural talent. Or our natural way of being. So things like curiosity, compassion, collaboration, courage. Courage is going to be massively important because we're all walking through uncharted territory. Things are changing so rapidly that, what we had in our plan last month probably isn't relevant next month. So we have to have the courage to be able to face these things, to ask for help, to step forward, to step up. And that means doing the work on ourselves so that we can support ourselves to make those bold steps forward. But I think what encourages me is the fact that AI can make us better. And we often look at it as something that's going to take our jobs away or be better than us. But AI can make us better. And, I found that as an entrepreneur, that AI can help me massively. It can help everyone if we're curious and we lean into it and we collaborate. So that's what I think soft skills. And, you said, what do women have to do to be future ready? Start focusing on yourself as much as you focus on everybody else. I was talking to 2 people last week who were telling me everything they're doing for their teams to support them, to make sure that they're future ready. And I said, what are you doing for you? Silence. So it is about being able to create the assets that you need to be able to step into these roles that are going to become available. It's about being able to position yourself well as an obvious choice for these opportunities and someone that can solve big problems, be agile and curious.
And that does take a pause. People have to pause because they're so busy with work and kids and soccer games and football games and this and that, and they're running 100 miles an hour. They're not present in their own lives, right? They're just running from place to place. So can you share a story maybe where you've helped somebody shift that was remarkable and made a big difference? Maybe they went from stuck to influential, or from, not being promoted to promoted.
Yeah. A story that stands out is someone who came to me. She described her workplace as toxic. She had lost her voice and she'd lost trust, and therefore she wasn't speaking. She was really concerned about what was coming up in the company because, like many, they were restructuring, and she had no confidence that she would be put into a good position in whatever the restructure looked like. And I think when you withdraw, it's really hard to put yourself back in the game. And that's where she was. So we started to work on who she is, what she brings. I always do Gallup Strengths Finder with my clients, because if you're working to your natural talent themes, things become easier. So we looked at understanding who she is, what she brings, the impact that she can have in business. We made sure that she had a good CV, her LinkedIn profile, all of that sort of stuff. And we started to work on how she could re-engage whilst looking for something else, because that was really what she wanted. She didn't feel good about that company anymore. But it was massively important that while she was there, she was engaged. So that's what we started to look at. And with these things, it's always the little things that make a difference. It's not about suddenly standing up on stage and declaring your intent, or, it's about piping up at certain moments and not standing for things that are not acceptable. And so she started taking these little moves, but at the same time, she applied for a role in a company she'd always wanted to work for, went through a 5-stage process that created so much confidence in her, because she was able to articulate who she is and the impact that she can have. And she saw herself clearly. Anyway, she got offered the role. Brilliant. So excited. Thriving in that role, because it was a company that she respected, loads of opportunity. But the other thing that happened was she doubled her salary. And, that wasn't where we started, but that's where we ended. So that's one of my favorite stories, because there are so many people that stay in environments that don't get the best out of them, or tolerate certain types of and this was misogyny, certain types of behavior. You don't have to.
I love that story. So she doubled her salary. She left. She feels influential. Yeah. She now has a voice again. Okay. Every single woman out there right now who's listening, who feels overlooked, capable, but invisible, wants to know, how do I believe in myself more to just take that first step?
I think you have to see yourself. And we're so busy and we're often so disconnected that we miss all the stuff that we are and focus on the stuff that we're not, or we don't have. I always think the first thing to do is think about, what is the brand I want to build? How do I want people to talk about me? How do I want people to experience me? And start working towards that. Because if you're intentional and you're strategic about this, you can create the brand that you want. You don't have to be overlooked. The other thing is, think about what you're doing that is creating your experience. Because, there are people that say they're overlooked, but they don't put their hand up. There are people that say that they have to do everything themselves and they're overburdened, but they don't ask for or accept help. These are some of the patterns that are ingrained. And I do believe we co-create our experience. I think if you can disrupt whatever loop you're in, and that's what we did, and start to do something different, you will create a different experience.
I feel like that's agency right there. You just described agency. You have to own it. You have to own it for yourself.
And you have to think about, okay, so if that's how I want to be seen, who do I want to be seen by? Who is in my network? Who are the strategic relationships that I need to build? And go for it. Because there's no point saying I'm not influential or I'm not seen or I'm overlooked if you're not doing something about it.
So Elevate Women has been around, you said, since 2019, right? So you've been around for a while now. You're trying to build more successful, more confident women in positions of power.
Yes.
For you as an entrepreneur, what does that look like in 5 years, 10 years?
So I built a membership last year and I would love to continue to grow that. So my responsibility that I feel is that I want anyone that's in my circle to be always ready for opportunities that come their way. So a lot of the time people don't go for things because they don't feel ready, or they don't have the CV sorted, or they don't have a profile. I want anyone in my circle to feel like they've got what they need, they can go for it. That's my that's the obligation I feel. Success for me will feel like that is what is happening. And I'm seeing more and more people stepping up, because what's actually happening here, and I think in the States, is that women get to a certain age, mid to late 40s, they've had enough and they leave, like I did, and set up their own business. So now we're missing that layer of skill and expertise and feminine energy in corporates, which in my view is much needed.
Is there something companies can do at the same time, which if anybody's out there listening, what can they do to support?
Look at your talent pools. Most companies offer talent programs for senior women, not the level beneath. And so when there's a senior vacancy, they don't necessarily have the talent to fill it. And, that's their answer. Well, do something about that, because you can. Create talent programs and nurture middle-level women so that they can take these bigger seats. The other thing is, stop asking women to take on non-promotable tasks or side of the desk jobs. Stop giving busy women more things that you wouldn't give to men. Because
I love that
thing that drives me around the bend. You wouldn't ask men to do certain roles that you would ask women to do without batting an eyelid. So, and women raise their hands generally for more non-promotable tasks because we like to help, we care. We want to solve problems, we want to make it easier for people, but someone somewhere needs to stop us.
How do you describe a non-promotable task?
Something that is not helping you get where you want to get to. And that will be different for different people. But there are stats that show that women volunteer for 50% more than men, and men ask women to do more.
Just because a project lands on your desk or somebody says you should do it, doesn't mean you have to. Doesn't mean you have to. Right? You can say, I'm sorry, I'm at bandwidth. I can learn by helping somebody else champion that project.
Absolutely.
Right? You don't have to own it. So I started talking to you at the beginning of your career. I'm going to take you back one more time. What do you wish or what do you tell women that you work with? Something that maybe you wish somebody told you at the beginning of your career, and now you impart that knowledge to them earlier in their career so they don't have to learn it late.
I had red flags that I disregarded. I always thought that I didn't need anything different to men. And this is despite the fact that when I was 16 when I joined banking, and I joined with 2 boys. And they both went away every Thursday afternoon on study leave. And I asked the ops manager, where are they going? Because I didn't know. And shouldn't I be going there because I started with them? And he said, no, because you're going to get married and have children. I didn't need to do my banking exams for that very reason. And that was what I did. And, that should have been a major red flag for me. But I just thought he was an idiot.
Wow.
And
my mouth fell open. I'm just like, wow. And by the way, that's still happening today. I hear language around the language a lot around, oh, but you have to get home to the kids. Oh, but you wouldn't want to do that because you want to be home with the kids. I still hear it. Yeah. It's still happening.
It's still out there. And there are still ways that women are excluded from really important, valuable, future-proofing training that if you're on a golf course with your boss, you're accessing. And so this is the problem. And this is what I want women to understand, is that you have to be smart about this. You have to understand the system that you're in. And the system isn't always fair. The system is created often by men for men, whether we like it or not. And you have to play in that system. So you have to be open to the fact that there are going to be times where you might be disadvantaged. So you need to take care of yourself. That's what I wish I mean, even despite my red flag, I still didn't.
Still didn't take care. Still didn't pause, right? We didn't know to pause back there and actually think.
No.
So we're wrapping up, but you are here on Work Unscripted. So what part of your own story was most unscripted? The thing that even surprised you?
I think I've let my business kind of evolve, and I love that. When I set my business up, did I think I'd be working with women and trying to help change things? No. But that's how it's gone because of, when you reflect, when you give yourself time to think about some of your own experiences, and then you're starting to work with very different clients, that's when things start to unfold. And I'm at a stage where I like things unfolding the way that they do now, instead of having to control everything.
And you can just be curious about as it's unfolding, right?
Yeah. I mean, most of my corporate career, I was following where I was asked to go. I mean, that wasn't my script. That was my boss's every time. Take this on. And my whole career was success looked like more responsibility, more work. Happily, promotions came with it, but that wasn't my measure of success. It was more responsibility. So, yeah. Things are different now. It's about feeling like I'm making a difference, having an impact, and living my life.
It's amazing. And I agree with that 100% because success for me was control as well, and moving up and making more money and all that stuff. And now it is the impact and the people that I touch and connect with and provide guidance and experience. So where can people find you? Where can they take your confidence quiz? You have a confidence quiz. And where can they get your book, Unshakable Confidence?
Okay, so everything's on my website, which is elevate-women.co.uk. I have a confidence quiz and a future-proof yourself quiz. So if you're thinking about how do I future-proof myself, take my quiz. My book is also available on Amazon, Unshakable Confidence, Your Blueprint. And you'll find me on LinkedIn. That's my main platform. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. There's only one Kirsteen Williamson-Guinn, so you should find me okay.
Awesome. Kirsteen, it is so amazing to talk to you. Such great insights for women out there. Reach out to Kirsteen if you want to talk to her. Thank you so much for being here on Work Unscripted.
Thank you for having me.
Kirsteen doesn't treat confidence like a magic personality trait because it's not. It's understanding your value, knowing how the system works, and building the right relationships. It's about self-advocacy, career agency, and knowing when to stop taking on work that keeps you busy but does not move you forward. So if this episode made you think about your own career, start there. Where are you overfunctioning? Taking on non-promotable tasks? Under-advocating for yourself? Or maybe waiting for someone else to notice what you already know you bring to the table? If this conversation resonated with you, share it with a woman in leadership who needs to hear it. And as always, stay curious, stay growing, and stay unscripted. The journey is yours. Work Unscripted is produced and edited in partnership with the team at Palm Tree Podco and 21 Digby. The content for this week's episode was created by me, Marlo Lyons.